Last speaker. I'd like to introduce you to Rabbi Shraga here in Tel Aviv in our hall right now. Rabbi Shraga is a distinguished Israeli rabbi. He's a member of the Phoenix Cryonic Association that we established, and also an expert in halakhic burial. He will talk to us today about cryonics in the prism of Jewish law. Please. Would you like me to load your presentation? Okay, just 1 second. Let me make this happen. I'm going to share that. Okay. All right, we are seeing it. Let's go to slide, play, and minimize. Wonderful. You go 1 second. You go with the errors. Okay. Please.
Thank you, Kfir. Hello, everyone. My name is Shraga. I'm certificate rabbi by the Chief Rabbanut of Israel and also serve as the rabbi of Vetek Association here in Israel. A few years ago, I was asked by Dr. Ilya Stamblers and others, what is the Jewish opinion about the cryonics preservation? So I set up a meeting with the Alcor Institute. I flew to Scottsdale, Arizona. They gave me a private tour. They were really nice. They answered all my questions. And after that, I wrote about cryonics. So before I'm gonna talk about cryonics preservation, let's talk about burial in general. So I hope there isn't any serial killer with us today, and I'm giving him new ideas. But I found 12 ways to get rid of a body. Yes, you can burn the body. You can throw it to the ocean, for example. I mean, I want to say that it's not obvious what we know these days, what to do with that body, right? You can do nothing. You can leave it on the living room with your family, like as some tribes do in Indonesia. And you have other ideas. Okay, so let's talk about the Jewish burial. Let's start from the Mishnah period, let's say like 2,000 years ago. In the beginning, it was 2 stages of burial, right? They used to take the body and put them in the caves. And after the flesh was gone, they will collect the bones and put them into, let's say, ossuary or some box, and put them together with the family. Burial with in 2 stages. You can see the photo. It was like a yard and bunch of niche into the wall under the ground. And then after the flesh was gone, they would collect the bones and take it home or somewhere else. Okay, so where is the source of burial obligation? In the script, it was in Dvarim. If someone committed sentence to death, so they will kill him, and it's wrote that should not put him hang him on the pole, but you shall not leave his body on the pole overnight. Rather, you shall bury him on the same day, etc. And then, so this is talking about someone that sentenced to death. But what about the general public, right? So the Gemara Sanhedrin, it says like this. Ask Rabbi Yochanan, from where in the Torah is there a hint for the mitzvah of burial? So he answered that the verse states, but you shall bury him, kavor tikberenu in Hebrew, doubling the verb for emphasis that you should bury him. And after that, the Gemara tells us a story about King Shapur, the monarch of Persia, once say to Rav Hana, he asked him, from where in the Torah is there a hint to the mitzvah of burial? Rav Hana didn't answer him what is the source. And then the Gemara continue, what is the reason of the burial? And after we know what is the reason of burial, we can understand what are the differences that arises from those reasons. So reason number one, the Gemara debating about burial, it's rather it's from because of a count of disgrace, right? Or an account of atonement. Okay, the interpretation of disgrace is large, but let's say disgrace from the dead body in front of us, disgrace to the family, right? And atonement, it's for the person, for his soul, right? The Gemara didn't answer what is the reason and keep it in open question. And the difference is, if this someone say, I don't want you to bury me, if it's because of the reason of disgrace, nobody asking you, is disgrace of your family and the environment. So they're gonna bury you by force. But if it's the reason is because atonement, so this guy is telling us that he don't want an atonement. So he didn't want an atonement, so we're not gonna bury him by force. He doesn't want it. Okay, so after we saw there was two stages in burial back in the day, let's talk about the sequences of the events. Everybody knows the verse of Genesis, for dust you are, and the dust you will return, כי עפר אתה ואל עפר תשוב. And from there we found in the Talmud Yerushalmi, Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi commanded before his death, do not multiply shrouds for me and let my coffin be buried in the earth. In Hebrew, it's תהא ארוני נקופה לארץ. It's important because the interpretation of this is important. Okay, so the first source we found in Judaism that speaks about the connection between burial and dust and soil and ground, it's Rav Natronai Gaon. Rav Natronai Gaon was asked the question about the correct way to bury a person. Should he be thrown into cave niche and slab placed above him niche so that no dirt or murder will touch his face? Or should he be covered with dirt as we do, like we do these days? And he replied, his answer not that clear. In the beginning, he want to say it's disgrace to put dirt on his face. But in the bottom line, this is the first source that we found that he say, and what they put dirt on because its cure is dirt. It is right, and then it says, thus you are, and thus you shall return. Yeah, so this is the first source that connecting between this verse in Genesis to the way we know today that put him to connect between dead body and burial and dust. Okay, from there, the Halacha was rolling. The Ramban, Rabbi Moshe ben Nachman, he take the story about Rabbi Yehuda Hanasi that commanded his sons before he died, do not multiply shrouds and bury my coffin buried in the ground. And he explained, meaning the spread, the lower the leaf in the coffin and lay it on the ground, right? That the body need to be attached to the ground. From there, the Shulchan Aruch, the canon book of the Halacha, Rabbi Yosef Karo, the one who gave the body to someone who died in a coffin and did not bury them in the ground, committed a transaction. And if the body was given in coffin and buried in the ground, it is not a transact upon him, but in any case, it's proper to bury them in the ground, even abroad, not just in Israel. Right. So from there, it's what we know these days, that what we watch, that they throwing the body to the grave and covering it with sand. Okay. From there, we can watch another rabbis that speak about this statement, right? For example, we see Rabbi Shabtai Cohen explaining the meaning, the Shulchan Aruch, that even though the coffin buried in the ground, the coffin would not be closed all sides. Yes, like only the below shelf should be removed. So it should be a coffin, but because we don't want to spell on him directly the scent, but it need to be like some source of attachment to the ground. Also, we find, for example, Rabbi Mordechai Yafe, that he said exactly what is writing before, that to cover him, that is customary to cover the coffin with the sheet and not put any dirt on his body because it's a disgrace to him. Right. Also, for example, it brings the priests, the Kohanim, in this time that was buried in coffin completely, right, without any attached to the ground. Okay, I will ask two questions that we clear more about what I want to say. The first question is, why does the Talmud, when he asks in where we'll learn about the burial, not cite the verse from Genesis, right, as the source? For thus you are, and to thus you will return. That's the first question. If it's so obvious, if it's so simple. And the answer to that, and that's the answer you should give to the public, but this is the truth, because this verse speaks about states of aggregation. God supposedly created a man from the material called dust, and will return to his former state of aggregation, which is dust. But this verse not speak about the weight of burial. The second question, if the way to bury the person is to bury him completely under the ground, why Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi need to command his sons to do so? Right? If this is the way that custom in his time. The answer is that I found in the Midrash Rabbi extended to this Yerushalmi, with Rabbi Yehuda commanded that his coffin be anchored to the ground because of the flood. Yes, it's explained that the reason that Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi asked this because he afraid that his coffin will flash with this disaster and it's gonna be disgrace. But he didn't want to say that his body need to be attached to the ground or touch the dirt, the dust. Okay, let's talk about presidents. For example, Mami, Rabbi David ben Zimra, which was a rabbi that lived in Egypt. According to him, State of Israel brought abroad a Jewish Ethiopian that he considered him as Jewish. He was a really important rabbi. He asked about Jacob and Joseph, right? That they've been in Egypt and became a mummy. They bombing them. If it's we allowed to do so. This answer to us two problems in cryonics. One of the problem is the disgrace of the body when you do a procedure, right? On the dead body, you do a procedure. So he says, as long is for his honor of the dead and for his benefit, so you can do so, as we saw in Jacob and Joseph. And also we can see that okay, we'll talk about later. Another personage we found in the Talmud Baba Metzia about Rabbi Lazar that say to his mother, do not to his wife, do not bury me, um, rather put me on the attic, because he didn't want to bury it from his reasons. And so from these two precedents, we can see that there's options that burial is not mandatory, even burial as we know today. Okay, so we talked about um, in general burial, but if you're gonna see in the different Cryonic Institute, you can see that they put several persons in the same container. First of all, also they put upside down the the body from their reasons, and there's a small metal wall that separate the bodies in the containers. I don't remember if it was 4 or 6. These secondary problems, for example, um, so we talk about the procedure itself. If it can be done, we say that yes. The distance between the burials. Also, we can say that the wall is like considered as a distance. Burial of a donkey, you can't bury in the lay down position or upside down, like in standing. You need to have like put it in like a horizontal. Thank you. And the problem that you cannot bury a righteous person with wicked one. Okay. Okay, let's jump to the conclusion. Really, I like conclusions. Why can't cryonic preservation be a substitute for burial, or at least there's no obstacle to doing so? First, some methods consider burial only as the Rabbanan, not from the script. So according to them, if someone asks not to be buried, they go to the Kula and we not gonna bury him. Second, even if we take the methods that consider burial as a disgrace, which means when person told you that you want not to want to be buried, you're gonna bury him anyway, then there's no disgrace in cryonic preservation, since it is preserved, buried and covered, right? And his body does not decompose in front of us. And there's no fear that the body will be desecrated or moved by wild animals, for example, right? And we also found precedents for this. Third, even to the method that disallow burial in coffin without burial in the ground, here the container is connected to the ground, right? And it can be resembles as a built tomb, and container itself is inside a room that can be defined as the burial area. Okay. Fourth, we talk about the matter of the dirt that is just the ink and not mandatory. This is very important because the rabbi these days says it's mandatory and we doesn't gonna have atonement. No, it's just a hint. It's not mandatory. And if you want to do so, you can do like what other rabbi says, to put clay on his eyes before the burial itself, and that's fine. Right, we can improve if we want to do cryonics here in Israel according to the Jewish Halacha. We need to do some changes, but small changes, but nothing should be in there to this. 6, cryonics preservation is done in the hope that one day we will able bring the dead back to life. This significant reinforcement of belief in the resurrection of the dead in Judaism, And if I want you to take something from my presentation tonight, it's not my pretty face, it's this sentence. Judaism not only does not give up on life, it is also not willing to give up on the dead. The Talmud states that the dead who are resurrected will rise with their clothes on. And indeed, the various Cryonic centers, for example, Alcor, allow to storage the clothes and the various belongings of the deceased. Wonderful. Yeah, if you want to read my full article, you can search on Google Cryonics in Halacha. Thanks for listening. In our full contact and the tour in Alcor that I took video on it, you can watch in my page, Be Death. You're also welcome to join us in the WhatsApp group, TikTok, Instagram, whatever. If you want to connect me, you can send me a message in my Facebook page or Shraga. Thank you.
Thank you very much, all, for this fascinating presentation. I appreciate it. Thank you. Yes, of course, definitely. Do anyone has a question? Ilya, please.
Okay. Thank you very much, Rabbi Shraga. I believe it's a very important work you are doing, bringing people closer, everybody, religious and non-religious, to the idea of life extension, generally to the idea of cryonics in particular. The last point about the entrenched belief in Judaism in the resurrection, the revival of the dead, it's very entrenched. It's one of the articles of faith of Maimonides. We want to go too deep into this, but it's very deeply in the Jewish faith, altogether with the pro-life, pro-longevity ideology of Judaism. But in this regard, I want to ask a practical question. If you want a kind of a marketing technique for cryonics in Israel, we know that religious people are ready to pay hundreds of thousands of dollars to be buried on Mount of Olive, the Har HaZeitim. Why? Because their belief is that that will be the first place where the resurrection will start. And Jews are ready to pay good money to have a chance for resurrection as early as possible, before everybody else. So my question is, do you think it will work to try to establish a cryonic center in the Mount of Olives in Har HaZeitim? Because of course the resurrection will be done by the will of God, but through technology. And in other instances, it's okay with Judaism that something is done by the will of God, but through technology, through human agency. Do you think this logic will work in this case too, or not? And if not, why not? What's the obstacle for people to accepting this this strategy?
Thank you, Ilya. So the answer is no, which means I don't think we can convince even one religious guy that Cryonic is going to be his next burial. This presentation only, I made it because for the general public, that if there's obstacle, we need, okay, Cryonic preservation can be as a burial, and it's not a problem to do so. It's funny because I opened a group, a Facebook group for Ask Rabbi. We can ask Rabbi a question. Immediately I got 10,000 followers without even $1 advertising. In the Beat Death thing, in the Cryonics and stuff, people they don't want to hear about their death, right? So it's very, very hard to market it. Yeah, unfortunately.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Any other questions here? No? Anyone from the Zoom call would like to ask Rabbi Shraga a question? James, please.
Well, I mean, if you look, yeah, I did. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, perfectly. Thank you. Yes.
Okay, great. You know, we Alcor has, I think, at least 3 or 4 people on this call. And part of that is to demonstrate how serious we take the cultural issues that we want to respect. And somebody had brought up, Alcor has a neuro procedure, which would clearly contradict some of the Jewish customs and requirements. I thought a lot about this issue in terms of what you mentioned in your presentation about disgrace of the corpse or disgrace of the body. And when we cryopreserve somebody, we have a team, of course, of really highly qualified people. We make a point of showing absolute respect to our member patients who donate their bodies to Alcor. Is that a factor in terms of, to me, 24 hours security in a very controlled environment with a staff that's maintaining it and a caretaker? Is that a point we ought to emphasize culturally, that not only is there not disrespect, but there's kind of this highest level of respect being shown for somebody's corpse, or if you believe that there's viability, perhaps it's not even a corpse in that sense. Like what else could we do as an organization to show respect for the Jewish customs, I guess, in the sense of the actual operational side?
I think it's not just about Judaism. I think it's all about the religious, like to do a decent burial, right? I don't think like the family can fly to the Scottsdale, everybody, and make like a decent burial. If you can make like some ceremony, it doesn't matter if it's a Jewish ceremony or a Christian ceremony, but sort of ceremony, I think it would be better and easier to the religious family to accept that.
That's very helpful, and in fact, we have accommodated some other religious belief systems where they did do a ceremony at the body right before our team did the cryonic preservation process, and we allowed for that flexibility. We cool the body and then allow them to do their cultural or religious ceremony, and we'll take that under consideration as we look to open in Israel. Changing the operation in terms of the process to allow some respect in the ceremony, as you put it. And of course, we're consulting with rabbis. I'm meeting with a preeminent legal Jewish scholar on the issue of death, actually this afternoon, ironically, completely randomly. It wasn't because of the conference today, but she's a law professor, and specifically on Jewish customs related to death. And so I'm meeting with her this afternoon so that we can start creating an operation process that respects those needs.
Thank you, James. Thank you very much. Thank you all, Shraga, for your very enlightening talk.
I had a question, Rabbi, if that's okay.
Yes?
I had a question too, if that's
Yes,
okay.
please, Jeremy. Yes.
Yeah, Rabbi, we often go to hospitals that are very opinionated on religion, and I was wondering if you've ever had a debate with other rabbis on the validity of cryonics, and what kind of argument wins when you discuss with them.
1 second.
I mentioned some of the problems in my presentation. For example, the cost, like the differences between the rich and poor. Some of them brought this argument, and also what they call mandatory, that it should be burned in the ground, in the dirt, connect to the dirt. So anything else is not considered as a burial. But if we go back in the time, we can observe that other Jewish cultures through history, they doing it in different way. Whether it's in coffin, whether it's in caves. But I think if back in the day they got the cryonic preservation, some of the rabbi will allow it, because as I said, it's protected. There's no disgrace, so it's not should be any problem. But to convince religious people these days, impossible.
Do you think that us looking into, for instance, the cave? I mean, we actively mentioned that we're looking into long-term storage in a cave. Would that help alleviate some of the burial custom issues?
Yes, a little bit.
That helps, right?
I want to ask you when you mentioned that, I want to say something about that, but yeah, It's it's gonna be better. Yeah, for sure. Because it's under the ground, right? But even
Yeah,
I
it's
even
deeply
that
under the ground.
even if it's up the ground, it's still connected to the ground, right? These
Yeah,
days in Israel, we don't have a place to bury it into the ground, so they're doing in like buildings and exactly. So it's basically the same. But they put like some dirt below the deceased. Yep.
Rabbi
Thank
Shraga, could I have a question?
I'm sorry, Eugene, right?
Yes.
Please go ahead.
My question is regarding difference between full body cryopreservation and so-called neuro or cephalopreservation. As far as I understand, Judaism would allow only full body cryopreservation. And, I was conducting Alcor in the past, and I did not go through because I'm very concerned about their procedure that they prefer basically neuropreservation, cephalopreservation, and I would go only for full body. So could you please comment on this?
That's correct. There is option to only put the brain in preservation, but in Judaism you need to bury it or everything. Like even if you find hand or even blood, some of the you take the blood out and you put your material inside, also should be buried. So yeah, that's yeah. If as a Jewish person, okay, but Jewish have money, no, so they can do like full body. No problem.
Thank you again, Rabbi Shraga, and thank you.